The new Madone SLR is now our lightest Madone disc ever. Let's go back to Alex and talk about how they lightened up to the design. So one of the goals was 300 grams lighter. That was something you heard from the pro riders. How did you get there?
Yeah, we really looked at the frame from not just the frame, we looked at the system from a whole bike perspective. You're never gonna ride just the frame. You're gonna ride a frame with a fork and seat posts and cockpit. So we really tried to look at the whole system and analyze everything as a chassis. So what we found is that we can shave a lot of weight in the bar stem combo. We get about half the weight savings from the frame and some small frame tweaks, and then we get half the weight savings from the bar stem combo.
And it's a really lightweight bike, but it still rides well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the coolest parts about the bike, as we've talked a lot, is about the ISOFlow, and the ride quality of the bike in general was made for the World Tour pros. But we also didn't want to leave out, a lot of those guys are super focused on stiffness for sprinting, but we didn't want to leave out people who want to go on really long rides and still be comfortable. So the ISOFlow technology really allows the system to perform with a great amount of comfort, but also good sprinting stiffness.
So ISOFlow saves weight, it's aero, it's compliant, and the weight reduction program is significant. We're talking like 2/3 of a pound?
Yeah, absolutely. So, 300 grams is about the weight delta between this new bike and the old bike, and that's huge. Most of the gains that we see in road bike system improvements are like 10 grams, 30 grams, 40 grams, and to go to the order of magnitude of 300 grams is huge. With the previous design, we had really focused on aerodynamics as a whole system of the bike. And so if you look at the head tube, there's larger cutouts in the previous design. With that, we could shroud the fork or shroud the cockpit by adding a little bit of frame material that stretched above the head tube. But with this design, we really wanted to keep things really clean from a structural component so that we could be really efficient from a weight and structural rigidity. So we took out some of those cutouts of the head tube, and the previous gen cockpit left some room for improvement with aerodynamics and ergonomics, and I think we'll talk about the ergonomics a bit later, but the weight improvements of the aerodynamic cockpit are pretty huge, and that like half of the 300 grams almost is from that cockpit alone. And then from the frame side, we were able to get quite a bit of improvement over the previous model by making a ISOFlow and making a really clean, elegant solution to all those weight, stiffness, aerodynamic parameters. We used a different layup philosophy in this OCLV 800, and we're able to take some more weight out that way. And then the seat post design with the new seat post clamp also takes out quite a bit of weight.
You mentioned the 800 series OCLV carbon.
Yeah.
What about that material helped you? Does that influence tube shapes from the very beginning of the design?
Yeah, as we iterate more and more with trying to figure out what's the best-in-class carbon fiber that we can use, we find new types of material to put less material in certain places and then to use more material or different material in places that we want to tune flex. So it's sort of the last 30 years of carbon fiber bike technology just continuing to evolve, and what we get is something that we can have deep tube cross sections, but still be a lightweight, almost a climbing bike weight of a system. So yeah, it just allows us to have these larger tube sections and still have a lightweight bike.
So the front of this bike looks super clean. It's beautiful. What aren't we seeing that was there on the Gen 6?
We wanted to keep the aesthetic and the overall design of the previous bike, but we really started with a blank slate. We changed almost all of the frame tube cross sections. The cockpit is all new, kind of revised for ergonomics as well as aerodynamics. So we have an all new drop shape, all new shape in the tops. The stem is optimized for aerodynamics and for weight. The cockpit, the clean integration of the cables into the headset is a really difficult engineering feat, but we did it in a really clean way. And then the head tube is a little bit smoother, more structurally efficient, while still being really aerodynamic. The down tube is optimized for the cross-section of the airflow as it flows over bottles as well as without bottles, so you get the benefit of aerodynamics with and without bottles. The top tube is really optimized in cross-section for aerodynamics as the air flows off of the head tube and actually up toward the rider in that region. We optimize the cross-section for that. The thickness of the top tube in the middle is for adding flex to the ISOFlow. It actually allows the seat post member to flex a little bit more by having a thin cross-section in front of that ISOFlow. The seat tube cross-section is optimized for aerodynamics and for weight. And then as we transition down, there's a shelf just below the seat tube water bottle where you see right above the bottom bracket, and that actually improves the flow of the air as it goes over the crank and over the back of the bike. With this bike in particular, we added this one-by and removable front derailleur hanger, which is super cool because the drag of the front derailleur is substantial, and we can kind of give the rider a more clean aesthetic with that option of the one-by cover. And then as you go throughout the bike, there's lots of small ways where we've really improved the system for aerodynamic and weight efficiency.
So Jordan, when I look at the new Madone, it looks super clean front to back. What am I seeing and not seeing with this new bike?
Yeah, I mean, the last two versions of the Madone have always been really integrated bikes, and we took this one to the next level. The first thing that anytime we talk about integration is cable routing. The new bike really shares the same cable routing solutions as the previous generation Madone, as well as our Amonda today. But we do use a one-piece bar stem, so that cleans up the front end a little bit more. There's also fewer frame cutouts, so there's no longer a headset cutout in the front of the frame, which smooths the look of the bikes, but also the aerodynamics.
So you're saying cable integration, but really it's kind of just hose integration, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the bikes now are electronic drivetrain only, so whether that's SRAM ETAP systems or Shimano Di2 systems, there's a wide range of drivetrain options out there for electronics, and this bike is compatible with all of those.
And speaking of electronics, obviously I've got to put a head unit on there, maybe some lights. It accommodates those still.
Yeah, Madone has compatibility with our Blender ecosystem of parts, so whether you want to put a light on the back, a light on the front, or a light and a computer on the front, it's compatible with all those different bits and bobs that we have within Blender.
Right. And it's a race bike, so maybe I'm not going to have lights on there all the time. It comes with 25s. If I'm going on a long training ride, maybe I'd want something a little more plush on there. How big of a tire can I fit?
Yeah, our maximum recommended tire size for the Madone is 28 millimeters. It's always important to sort of put an asterisk on that one, because when we say the max recommended size, that means that there's 6 millimeters of clearance all the way around the perimeter of that tire. So you can sort of do the math with what size you want to run, but we recommend a maximum of 28 millimeters on the bike.
We've been talking a lot about the new Madone SLR itself, but the bike isn't much without a rider, and the rider has to be comfortable. So Jordan's back with us to talk about how riders can get the bike set up just perfectly for them and some of the features of the new Madone. One of those is the geometry spec, which is our H1.5. What does that mean?
Yeah, H1.5 actually was initiated with the last version of the Madone, and we named it H1.5 because it was exactly halfway in between H1 and H2, which are sort of legacy geometries or fits for us. H1 was super aggressive and sort of pro only. H2 was a little bit less aggressive, and this really split the difference right between the two. For us, we really felt like it was a perfect compromise of those two previous geometries in that our professional riders could still fit on this. Every one of them is using this geometry and fit, but yet it's still more accessible for sort of the weekend warrior to make sure that the widest range of riders possible can fit on the bike and be comfortable and fast.
We've talked a lot already about the aero benefits of the handlebars, but it's actually a comfort benefit to the rider as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a few things going on with the bar stem. One was that flare, so it's 3 centimeters wider in the drops than it is in the hoods. So you're faster when you're in the hoods because you're narrower, but because it's also wider in the drops, you have more control, more power in that position. There's also a new drop shape, so the drop shape has a shorter reach and it's just a different shape, a different curvature. The idea there is that it provides easier accessibility, and it's a position that a rider can be more comfortable in for more often. So you can just spend more time in your drops than previous, and it really allows you to sort of tailor your position to what's going on in your ride. If you want to go fast, you can get in the hoods, get fast, but if you need control or power, you're sprinting, going through a corner, those drops are a really awesome position.
And handlebars can be a really personal thing for riders. Obviously, you're using them all the time that you're riding the bike. Can you put just any bar or stem onto the Madone?
Yeah, I mean, in combination with all the different sizes, I think we have 14 different sizes of the bar stem itself, so there's a ton of different ranges of fit that we accommodate there. But if you do just want to use a standard bar and stem, we have a different bearing top cap, and that allows you to be able to use any bar or stem fit that you'd like. And that just means sort of the most riders possible can fit on the bike and get comfortable and use some of their preferred components if they want.
And getting comfortable means approaching the whole bike for a good fit. how do you fit tall riders and short riders when obviously there's no traditional seat tube? How do you get that fit range with this setup?
As we've done in the past, we offer 4 different combinations of seat posts. So there's 2 lengths and 2 offsets. It does now accommodate a bigger range of seat post heights than before, so we're able to get a higher saddle height than the previous Madone, as well as a lower saddle height. And so again, we're just trying to accommodate as many fits as possible on the platform to make sure that all riders can benefit from all the awesome features of the Madone.
Now that we have a solid understanding of Madone SLR's development and the updates to the bike, let's hear from Trek Segafredo rider and former world champion Mads Pedersen to hear his thoughts on the new Madone and his help in developing it.
I'm Mads Pedersen and I'm riding for Trek Segafredo. So the ideal race bike for a cyclist now, for professional cyclists, is definitely something really aero and then also light. So it was really important for us to make this a really fast bike. And then, yeah, of course we pushed Trek to get it lighter as well. Cycling is moving and we also want to have the best equipment, and every time a new bike is coming out, you have to start working on the next one to make it better. So the process of, let's say, building a new aero bike started almost like a few months after we got the previous bike. We asked to get the adjustable ISO speed out to make the bike a bit lighter but still keep the comfort. We asked for a bike that would react faster, and again Trek came up with this bike, and from the first time we tried that bike, we had a few different bikes to try, and I think in the end we really reach a big goal for us with this new Madone, and this we did together, from the engineers at Trek to us working together, because for sure they have all the data but we have the feeling on the bike, and I think that combination makes a perfect bike. Now we're here and we are riding a spaceship. This bike is superb. It's reacting like we wanted. It's really aggressive in the corners. It's easy to handle. When you put it in a corner, the bike goes where you want it to go. It's not controlling itself. It's really behaving like I want it to. And then of course the lightness of the bike is also super important. Like, it's so fast when you start a sprint, for example. It's there straight away. You don't have the feeling that you have to get it up to speed or anything. It's not because we had a bad feeling with the old bike. It was also super fast, but we feel the small differences, and with this one I think we hit the perfect bike for a rider like me.
Madone outperforms and has frame design features that are straight out of the future. Senior product graphic designer Micah Moran joins us now to talk about how Madone is a perfect template for the colorways that you have designed for it. So what are those colorways that we can see on the new Madone?
Yeah, so we have 5 select colorways for the new Madone with a range of graphic packages on them. So if you're looking for the lightest option, that's our lightweight scheme. And it's a deep carbon smoke with rainbow holographic logos. We even stripped away part of the Trek logo just to give it a more aggressive and lightweight look. Now, we made the Madone for our teams, so we will be offering the men's and women's colorways of their bikes, so you can ride the bikes that our team race with the Viper Red and Azure Blue colorways. Next, we have a bike with a lot of depth to it. We took red smoke and put it over layers of carbon and different metallic paints, so you get a lot of shifting as the bike goes from metallic paint to raw carbon. If you're looking for something a little bit more minimal, we've got this bike here, which is very kind of stealth-like, small Trek presence on the top tube, but has a lot of depth because of the layered metallics and neutrals inside the bike.
And it's not just colors that you've worked up on this. The colorways are great, but there's a few little Easter eggs hidden inside of the frame, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our 7th from the ground up iteration of the Madone. And we wanted to keep that legacy going. So when you look at the frame, the top tube junction into the seat stays creates the number 7. We took that inspiration for a little lockup on the down tube for the special Madone number 7. Additionally, we think that this is a pretty dynamic shift forward in technology, so kind of a fast forward moment, if you will. And again, if you look at that profile view and you look at the negative space created in that ISOFlow pocket, it makes the shape of a fast forward button.
The new Madone SLR is our fastest road race bike yet, and our lightest Madone disc ever, and still rides amazingly well.